Ever listen to a recording of your own voice and think, is that really what I sound like? Or why do I sound so weird? That used to be me, but now I'm a professional producer and singer that deals with listening to my voice every day, and it doesn't bother me anymore. And I've got some good news for you. With the help of the steps I'm about to share, you too can start to like the sound of your own voice. In this video, I'll break down the science behind why we cringe at our own voice. Then I'll give you 4 quick fixes to give your voice a better sound instantly. Then at the end of the video, I'll teach you how you can learn to love the sound of your own voice, even if you've always hated it. Let's get started. Now, this might shock you, but most people don't like how their voice sounds when they hear it played back to them. But it's actually a common phenomenon. One survey conducted in 2023 showed that 58% of people reported dissatisfaction with their own voice sound. Very interesting, but why? To answer that question, this week I put on my science hat. Yes, this is my science hat, and delved deep into the world of auditory literature. Exciting, I know. Here's what I found. There are 2 main factors that contribute to disliking your own voice. The first is physiological. When you speak out loud, the sound from your voice reaches your ears differently than when you listen to a recording. Although you hear some of your voice through the air, most of the sound is heard through vibrations in your skull. These vibrations and bones in your skull boost the amount of lower frequencies we hear in our voice. When we hear external sounds or other people speaking to us, we don't have our skull vibrating in the same way. For this reason, many people find their voice thinner and higher pitch when they hear a recording compared to their normal voice. The second factor that explains the dislike of your own voice is psychological. When you hear your recorded voice sound differently than how you normally hear it in your head, it highlights the gap between how you perceive yourself and what others hear. And hearing that discrepancy can be shocking. All of a sudden, it dawns on you that the voice other people hear and the voice you think they hear are different. And that's an uncomfortable thought. One study in 2005 explored this same phenomenon. First, the clinicians took individuals with voice issues and had them evaluate their own vocal recordings. Then the clinical experts compared the same recordings and rated them. Across the board, the participants judged their voice much more harshly than the clinicians did. I told you, you're not alone. Now I've got 4 quick tips you can implement so you can learn to love the way you sound. The first tip is listen frequently. Remember the psychological reason for not liking your own voice? A lot of the dislike comes from not being used to it. So how do we change that? Well, we listen to it a lot. The more you listen to yourself speaking or singing in a recording, the more your brain will get used to the sound. Over time, this will help you bridge the gap between your perception of the voice and how it actually sounds to other people. The next tip is to train your voice. When I first started singing and recording my songs, I hated my voice. I did everything I could to change the sound, but it never matched up to the singers I heard on the radio. What I didn't realize then was that no amount of audio plugins or processing would have changed my voice to compete with professional singers. What I needed was a better voice. And though you can't fully change the vocal tone you're born with, you can sure as hell improve it through practice. And so I did. I practiced, and eventually my voice matured and improved, and my recorded voice sound graduated from amateur to professional. The best singers and speakers didn't develop their skills overnight. They trained them over time. As you gain more control of your voice through training, you'll improve your voice's quality, pitch, and tone. These can all make your vocal recordings more pleasing to the ears. The best way I've found to train your own voice is through a guided professional's help. They'll identify your weak spots and give you specific exercises tailored to improve your voice fast. And shameless plug, our teachers here at Music by Maddie can do just that. And we'll give you your first vocal lesson with us for free. Though we are full right now, you can sign up for our lesson waitlist in the description below. The next tip you'll want to do to learn to love your own voice is record and process it properly. Let me share a story to highlight the importance of this point. One time I was working with a client who wrote a song, but she could only record it on her iPhone. She spent hours nailing down take after take to try to get the sound that she liked, and she never did. After a day of trying to record her vocals, she finally sent them to me anyways, even though she wasn't satisfied with the sound. I took her vocals and then added some processing to them to make them sound like a real song. And when she finally heard her voice with the added effects in her song, she was ecstatic. All it took to change her mind about her vocals was some professional mixing and processing. There's a big difference between a scratchy, noise-filled voicemail and a professional studio quality recording. And that difference could be part part of the reason you're not satisfied with your own sound or your own voice. Try experimenting with different microphone setups and different mic placements. Find the one that works best for your unique voice, because everyone's different. It's also important to learn how to process your vocals so after you record them, you can change up the sound slightly. Both of those topics are more advanced and a little out of the scope of this video, but if you want to learn how to process your vocals properly, I actually made a detailed video explaining the same vocal chain techniques I used on my client's voice earlier. You can check it out up here. And finally, on to my last tip, and in my opinion, the most important one for learning to love your own voice. The tip is accept your imperfections. I know this sounds philosophical and lovey-dovey, but I promise it works. Every voice is different. Just because you don't sound exactly like your favorite speaker or singer doesn't mean you should be hard on yourself. In the music industry, A&R reps, or the people in charge of finding new artists, are much more likely to sign someone who has a unique and distinct voice rather than someone who can sing really well but sounds like everyone else. I'm sure you can think of some artists like this that fit the bill. Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Elvis, Johnny Cash, Neil Young. The list goes on. These artists don't necessarily have the highest range or the best vibrato, but they all have a unique sound characteristic that makes them undeniably them. So celebrate your vocal differences. They make you stand out and make your voice unique. And no matter where you are on your vocal journey, if you understand the science behind hating your own voice, if you implement the tips I provided, and if you accept your voice for what it is, you'll soon learn to love the sound of your own recorded voice.